Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Great to have you in. Welcome to Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, graduate Damon Barr is in. He's like, that's right, son, and I'm going to be bailing you out of jail someday. Damon Barr is in. Mr. Rum Connoisseur. We are loaded up. We're going to spend time with Mitch Sherman. Mitch is our constant Tuesday guest. We love talking ball with him. And Mitch and his buddies at The Athletic, they're doing really a cool feature on upsets that have shaped college football programs even 20 years later. And you had the upset that Nebraska fans have tried to, block and drink out of their memory, and that's the Nebraska-Colorado 2001 debacle in Boulder. We'll spend some time on that. Rick Kaczenski is with us, get a coach's perspective. Can you smell an upset as a coach or as a player? If it's been a bad week of practice, or maybe you're getting a little bit too big ahead as a player, and, we'll get Coach Kaczenski's perspective on that. And also George Darlington, the Hall of Fame Nebraska assistant, as Coach Darlington was on that staff in Boulder in 2001, part of Mitch's story. So numbers to get in. Join us at 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Those are the numbers. You can email chris@hailvarsity.com and give us a follow. Find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio or at Damon Barr. That's 2 R's. Let's get you some baseball updates. One of the official voices of college baseball's Kendall Rogers. And he is all over where things could be for the NCAA regional projections and seedings, and most importantly, host sites. So you got towards the end of the week here with the championship oversight panel, where they're going to put their mark on where the 16 sites will be Thursday or Friday here. And what I do know is this, the latest projections along with Kendall and Aaron Fitt for D1 baseball, they now have Florida State moving into that last host site. It is no longer Lincoln, Nebraska. It's no longer Nebraska. Too tough of a sweep against Rutgers. Really good weekend, 3-1 for the Big Red, but not enough. And really there's just zero margin for error, right? Because the Big Ten was idiotic yet again with some decision-making. And from a baseball standpoint, you are getting no non-conference games where go ahead and fly to Piscataway, but damn it, you can't drive up the road, or Creighton can't come down here, and you can't play Creighton. You're 60 miles away. But Florida State is now the 16 seed. They're the 1 seed in the Tallahassee Regional, as Nebraska is back in familiar territory, and that is in the Fayetteville Regional against top seed overall, the Fighting Dave Van Horns of Arkansas. That's a nice story. You have the Will Bolt, Coach Van Horn connection. Nebraska's the 2 seed. Oklahoma State's in there. Oral Roberts, the 4 seed. So that's the projection right now by Kendall Rogers. So Nebraska back where they were before they got hot and took first in the league. So it's not over. Nebraska can still make some noise, but the reality is this. I mean, you've got to win out and hope some teams lose out, because Michigan looms, and we pray that the Northwestern game gets in, or the series gets in with their COVID situation. But as nice as Michigan is, even their RPI is not great. It just isn't. But overall, the Big Ten is getting a little bit of a nod. There are now, per D1 baseball, 5 Big Ten teams slated to make the field of 64. for the NCAA baseball tournament. Maryland is now a 3 seed. Michigan is in the Texas regional down in Austin as a 2 seed. Again, projections here, as we'll know for sure, the end of the week where host sites are going to be. You do also have some more Big Ten flavor, which is nice, in South Bend, and this has always kind of been constant with Indiana, the 2 seed, as in the Notre Dame regional, Notre Dame the 7 national seed right now, and Iowa in the Texas Tech regional as the Hawkeyes, the 3 seed, mixed in with Wright State, Arizona State, and Texas Tech. You have Michigan, Nebraska, Maryland, Indiana, and Iowa, your 5 Big Ten teams right now as we talk on a Tuesday getting in. So there's where we're at. Let's go back to what Mitch wrote about, and that's the Nebraska-Colorado game 0-1. And it's a difficult conversation. Some of you are screaming at your radio or shaking your phone as you stream us on ESPNLincoln.com. But it's a tough discussion. And a lot of you remember where you were for that game. So many people have made the trip out to Colorado for Nebraska-Colorado, and it did its best to replace Oklahoma-Nebraska. Never really did, obviously. But, man, there were some ball games, and Nebraska was rolling. Nebraska had beaten Oklahoma. Crouch had his Heisman moment with the 41 black flash reverse, where he catches it, goes down the sideline from Mikey Stunts. And Nebraska prevails and is in the top of the college football mountain in 2021. You beat Kansas State. You beat Texas Tech. And then you go into Boulder the day after Thanksgiving and get annihilated 62-36. And it was closer than that, where Nebraska had a chance to cut the lead down to single digits. And a guy that was a good running back here but still gets crushed for it, Darren Diedrich, had too many fumbles that day. One of those is he tried to go Walter Payton from 5 yards out over the goal line, and there's a fumble, and Nebraska really never threatened again. And, you know, what did that game do to change the course of history? And I looked back, and we'll talk with Mitch about this because this is a fascinating project. And you had so many upsets that weekend or the weekend after, where Spurrier gets upset by Tennessee, and he hated Tennessee. Nick Saban beats Tennessee. Nebraska finds their way back into the national championship game against Miami by the slimmest of margins with the BCS computer. We'll talk with Coach Barnett like we always do on Thursday, as he's also in this story. Eric Crouch is in it. Daniel Graham's in it. Craig Oakes, the quarterback's in it. Chris Brown went for 6 touchdowns and a boatload of yards. And it was just rough. And we'll talk to George Darlington, who was, putting the defensive game plan together along with Craig Bull. And, the simple question is, you point back and circle it and say, did that disintegrate the program? Did that loss, going back to that loss, can you point back to that and say, you're still struggling today? And that was the atom bomb explosion for the program. And I don't think so, but it sure as hell didn't help. There's a lot of factors to me that has caused the downfall of Nebraska football. And the first big piece of it, yes, was that loss. But then getting the executioner mask strapped on you and being tied to a pole and then playing that Miami team was 7 pounds of salt in a compound fracture. And then you go 7-7. And you have a new AD. Bill Byrne didn't want Frank Solich. Well, Smiley sure as hell didn't want Frank Solich. And Steve Peterson was out to find his great next football coach named Steve Spurrier or Urban Meyer. Spurrier's like, huh? And Urban's like, no, dude, you just whacked the 10-win coach. I'm staying here at Utah. Thank you. I will hang at Utah for a bit, and then I'm going to go to Florida. So I applaud the names on the list, Steve, but you ended up with Bill Callahan, who, if he had some redo, if he could get in the DeLorean, just like Nebraska's players and coaching staff would love to get in Michael J. Fox and Doc Brown's DeLorean and go back to 01. Man, it really was an avalanche on the program that you got a new AD that came in that had an agenda, and then you go 7-7, and then 2 years later you pop a guy for 9 wins. And we aren't going to get into the arm wrestling match of, is Frank the right guy? Was Frank the wrong? I mean, clearly the coaching changes that have happened since blasting Solich has been the biggest problem. But you say you come back and win that Colorado game. At one point, the game was 42-30. Nebraska had a chance to score to make it 42-37. Say you win that, you have an improbable comeback against Colorado that day, and then you go play Texas, and who knows how that would have gone, but you go get a shot at Texas, and then, I don't know. The best thing for Nebraska was after the Colorado loss would have been to go play Illinois in the Sugar Bowl. Okay, because Illinois got beat by LSU, or you go play Nick Saban in the Sugar Bowl. Nebraska was still an elite football program with really good talent, but they had a guy like Crouch. In all of Eric Crouch's performances, and he was money against Notre Dame twice. He was really good against Oklahoma in Lincoln, and they got off to a great start in Norman the year before when they were ranked number 1. Crouch, in a losing effort, willed that team to still be in it with 162 rushing yards and 198 passing yards. And you're an option team at the time where your bread and butter is running the football. So you're down 35-3 with 10 minutes left in the second quarter. How the hell's an option football team going to come back and make this thing a game? Defense found a way to get some stops eventually, and the offense hit some big-time plays. But, man, I'm anxious to hear from Coach Darlington as a coach if they ever felt like they were out of it. In this story from Mitch Sherman, Eric Crouch believed in his heart of hearts that they were going to find a way to come back and win that game. Mitch was there for it, was covering it, and I'm anxious to get into it. But, you know, as a Nebraska fan, can send your emails, chris@hailvarsity.com. Do you point back to that game as to what really turned the tide from elite, glorious football program and team? Is that the moment for you? Because there's been a lot of moments since. Okay, you've had tough losses to Wisconsin. You've had sub-500 seasons. You've been through a lot of either wrong hires administratively or with the head coach. And just overall as a fan base, there's an expectation where, man, I think a lot of us would kill for 9 wins or 8 wins now, but that's still expected, and Nebraska's not close to what they were. They're trying to get back there, and they're trying to get back there with a formula that made it great for 50 years. But right now, it's just tough, and that's a moment in football that absolutely is burned into Nebraska fans. I mean, think about it. I was watching that in my parents' basement. I was a graduate. I was working part-time. I was working for Dolman and ESPN here in Lincoln. And I remember trying to do an early post-game show with Bill as he's in the Colorado press box. And it's just maddeningly deafening there because it's an insane party. It's years of pent-up frustration. It's years of Colorado losing in overtime or by a field goal or by less than a touchdown to Nebraska for like 5 or 6 straight years, post-Frazier era. And they let it all hang out, and Nebraska fans weren't treated. The fact that Nebraska got Nebraska that day is what hurt most. The score sucked. Who beat you was bad. But the fact that Nebraska got drilled with some of their own medicine and got out physicaled was really bad. Is it the reason Nebraska football's still been in the football wilderness for 20 years? It's part of a bigger reason. We'll talk with Mitch Sherman coming up on Hail Varsity Radio from The Athletic, his story, and it is pretty good. The Athletic's looking at 5 pivotal upsets from the 0-1 season that still resonate. Because all around, and I talked to Jack Arute earlier, and Jack's like, my memory's not so great now. I'd love to come on, but I just don't remember that day as vividly as I'd like. And Arute was doing sidelines, and I got to work with Jack on some post-game stuff, just interning, because, Nebraska's journalism and mass communication college is so awesome. They helped provide internships for that. So Jack Arute's on the sideline, and you're hanging out with him during the Oklahoma game, and he's doing his ESPN game night that night from, the ESPN studio that I was working at. So kept in contact with him, and even today he's like, I couldn't believe that happened. So a lot of reminiscing to do in a tough discussion with Nebraska, Colorado. Mitch Sherman's next.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Thanks for spending time. Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Mitch Sherman with us from The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Mitch, how we doing? Mitch, do we have you, bud? Hello, Mitch. Let's try and reconnect. How's that sound? Let's turn our music down, too. That'd be sweet. So let's see if Mitch Sherman can join us. He has got visions of Colorado dancing through his head. Chris Brown for another touch. That hurts. You can email chris@hailvarsity.com and find us. Follow us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio. Or you can get a hold of Damon and chastise him at Damon Barr. That's 2 R's. Coming up next hour, we will have a quick chat with George Darlington, Nebraska assistant that was on the sidelines or in the box, one of the two, that fateful day in Boulder. But really good read from The Athletic with what Mitch is doing. And you had a slew of upsets that day, or I should say that end of season, that really shaped how the direction of a lot of college football programs would go. Mitch, do we have you, bud?
I'm here.
Hey, sorry about that. I think the hamsters in the back that run the power here were trying to dodge Chris Brown's 7th touchdown run.
No problem. I was just I thought you didn't want to talk to me today, so
no,
you called me up and then it was just silent. But yeah, Chris Brown is still running.
Talk to me about this project. Phenomenal story and outreach and connection with so many key players in this story. And if you haven't seen it or read it, Mitch Sherman's story with The Athletic, and a feature that The Athletic's doing, 5 pivotal upsets from the 0-1 season that still resonate 20 years later. Mitch, you've covered Nebraska a long time. What was that day in Boulder like for you?
Yeah, I was at that game in Boulder and watching the game last week as I reported the story. We're talking, of course, about the 62-36 Colorado victory against Nebraska on Black Friday 2001. The Athletic is, as you said, writing a series of stories this week on upsets that were pivotal in the 2001 season and shapes college football. In a lot of ways, are still shaping college football. The first story in this series ran Monday. Stuart Mandel wrote about Ohio State with its first win in 14 years at the Big House. And you think now about where that series is at and where those two programs are at. And that was the flipping of the switch, as he wrote on that game. And then, of course, 2001, the same year, Nebraska at Colorado. Huskers are number 1 in the BCS poll. Colorado is a good team, but did not have the same kind of prestige at that time that Nebraska did. The Huskers had won 10 straight in the series, and everything went sideways for Nebraska from the very beginning of that game. So it was, I know Nebraska fans probably don't want to revisit that, but it's fun to hear the words of Eric Crouch and some of his teammates, Tracy Wistrom. I talked to George Darlington, who was, of course, the defensive coach for the Huskers at the time, about the schematic change that Nebraska made that week leading into the Colorado game because of their concern about the size up front for the Buffs, and it backfired badly as Colorado ran wild on a pretty simple running play that just went over and over and over again for big yardage until it was 35-3, and Nebraska made an adjustment. So Huskers came back in that one. That I guess stuck out to me in rewatching that game and remembering it, just how close Nebraska got to getting back to a place where it was a coin toss. And I think if you make it a coin toss in that situation, it's really heavily favoring Nebraska because of where Nebraska was at as a program. It almost got to that point on a couple instances in the third quarter. So we remember it as a blowout. It was a blowout, but it was in doubt very much in the second half.
Mitch Sherman's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Mitch with The Athletic, his story on the Nebraska-Colorado game 20 years later and the remnants of that game. Mitch, Eric Crouch was incredible, and I've enjoyed his time on the show. You've talked to him several times in your career. That may have been his finest 3 hours in a completely uphill climb. He balled out just big time, and he almost let it back. And he had some turnovers in that game were brutal, but specifically the win, because Nebraska was closing in on making that thing a one-score game, weren't they?
Yeah, it got to 42-30 in the second half. I mean, it was 42-23 coming out of halftime, and Darren Diedrich fumbled on the goal line, and then Nebraska nearly had a safety, almost turned a bad play into a good play. In fact, if you watch the replay, you might think it was a safety, which would have made it 42-25 with Nebraska getting the ball back. Nebraska did get the ball back after the fumble at the 1 yard line and went in and scored. Crouch scored to make it 42-30, and the Huskers got it back again. I think that's the time right there where Nebraska, could have turned it and won it. And then who knows? I mean, the reason we're writing about this is because of where the program went after that point. Of course, the Huskers were 7-7 in 2002 and got rid of 5 coaches. And then in 2003 went 9-3 in the regular season, and the wheels were in motion, and Frank Solich was out. And then you just have had this carousel of coaches that, is hopefully stopping with Scott Frost. But, it remains to be seen how this thing is going to turn out in the Frost era. So it's still in kind of a spin cycle, and there's an argument to be made that it started that day in Boulder.
Mitch, what's your take? Do you think the dynasty died that day, or was that the starting point? Say you lose but don't get killed like that. Is the urgency by the powers that be to move on from Frank as great? I know it's a hypothetical, but I'm just wondering.
It's a great question. Yeah, it's a great question to ponder, and it's hard to really know the answer. I honestly think the Miami game that occurred after that, in conjunction with the Colorado game, when you put both of those back to back, and we didn't know at the time. I think you had a sense after the Miami game, but you didn't know like you do today or 5 years later how great that Miami team was. I mean, with the running backs who were like a NFL Hall of Fame cast, and Ed Reed and Sean Taylor in the secondary, and the tight ends, the same kind of deal as the running backs. I mean, Ken Dorsey, the quarterback from Miami, was third in the Heisman and was maybe the 10th best player on that team. So knowing that, you take it a little bit differently, how Nebraska lost in the Rose Bowl. But at the time, it just seemed like another embarrassment after the Colorado game. And I think those two things together really shook Nebraska's to its core. And it very much put in motion the events that then led to the defensive staff getting replaced and Pelini coming in after the 2002 season. And then by that point, yeah, I think it was too late. Nebraska would have had to go 11-1 or something like that in 2003, and it just didn't have the team to do that or the schedule to make it happen. or the time to turn things around with Bo's defense that year. Perhaps if things had stuck together, it may have happened in 04 or 05. But recruiting was suffering a bit at that point because of the negative energy and the momentum in the program in comparison to where it was at just a few years before in the 90s. So that Colorado game absolutely is a factor in what we're talking about here, but it's not the whole thing. I don't even know if it's the linchpin. I think the Miami game after it is maybe even a bigger thing.
The way Miami was loaded that year, Oregon and Colorado, be my guest to go play the U. Kind of in hindsight, because no one was going to beat Miami that day. You know what's even more fascinating is Miami almost lost twice that year.
Yeah. Yeah, Virginia Tech. There was another team in the ACC.
Boston College.
Boston College. Yeah, and Miami team, I think they were bored as the year went on. And they were number one at the beginning of the year, and then it was just like, hey, can we get to the national championship already? I think that was kind of the attitude. And once they got there, it was 30 to nothing or 37 to nothing at halftime of that game. And talking to Crouch about that game, we reminisced, and I talked to all the guys I talked to on the Nebraska side. We talked about the Miami game too. You don't see that stuff in the story, but and talking to Eric Crouch about that game, we both remembered the play very well, where Jonathan Vilma took out Ben Zychek, the poor young receiver from Beatrice. It was unfair. It was like an NFL linebacker hitting a high school kid. And I remember I was in the press box for that one too in Pasadena, and there was a legitimate concern when that happened. Like, is Nebraska going to get off this field today without getting someone sent to the hospital? So that's kind of the way it went in Pasadena. And Miami was incredible, and Nebraska shouldn't have been in that game. Looking back on it, it was because of the formula that kind of messed up BCS formula with the computers that had no knowledge of when games occurred. Obviously, the computers didn't take into account that Nebraska had lost in its previous game by 26 points and didn't play for the conference championship, while Colorado, which did have two losses. One of which was early in the year, a preseason game against Fresno State, and then lost to Texas that Colorado avenged in the title game. It probably should have been Oregon, and it would have been Oregon most likely if the formula had been in place that was implemented after the 2003 season when changes were made to de-emphasize the computers. But Nebraska would have been better off playing Tennessee or Oregon or a rematch with Colorado or Florida or anybody but Miami in that game. And that may have impacted the way things went in 2002 if the Huskers had found a way to win a bowl game in 2001 and just taken some of that immediate sting out of the 62-36 defeat.
I remember thinking back, just let's head down to New Orleans and see if Illinois or LSU are as good as advertised, but no, you're off to Pasadena, and it didn't work out for Nebraska. That's the last time they ended the season also in the top 10, 11-2, 8th in the country. Really good football team, amazing player in Crouch, but the finish in Boulder was no good, and then getting the U in Pasadena was rough after a month of people screaming that you don't belong there, but it just went downhill. Mitch, this was awesome to chat about. I really loved this feature. I know it was a really horrible moment in Nebraska football history, but I'm still fascinated to this day by that game because it's still unbelievable with what happened. That's how locked in CU was that day.
Yep. Yeah, follow along. We got 3 more games to revisit, and really that season was some stars were aligned to shape the way that college football has transpired over the 2 decades that followed.
Mitch, we'll get caught up next week. Thanks for your time today.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Schmidt, Damon Barr. Your chance to qualify coming up for the ESPN Memorial Day kickoff. That's the grill from Capitol Patio in the Flame Shop, the gift card to Campbell's Nursery and Garden Center, and the meat to put on said grill from Leon's Gourmet Grocer, a $100 gift card. Listen for that sounder this hour. Listen for the sounder next hour for your chance to win. Well, hold on. Qualify. You will win if you're listening on May 21st. So, chatted with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, upsets that shaped college football in 2001, and some programs still feeling the effects today. And it's a simple yes or no. Is Nebraska still feeling the loss to Colorado 0-1? Yes, because of what Mitch said. The coaching carousel that's existed with this football program. We'll talk with Rick Kaczenski. Can you smell an upset as a coach or a player? Coming up in about 20 minutes. George Darlington, part of the feature in Mitch's story, was a longtime Nebraska assistant. We love Coach Darlington. He'll be with us here about 5:30. Get his take on what he was seeing and feeling going into that CU game. And it's interesting in Mitch's story, too. You know, Des Moines Adams, really good defensive end for Nebraska, was pretty open about, hey, yeah, we're kind of focused on the Big 12 title game. Colorado's that team that always tried to pick a fight with you, and you were the better football team, so you found ways to win really, really close games. And there were times where Colorado had as much NFL talent as you did. If you're the Nebraska football program, I don't know that 0-1 was pretty loaded, but there was the new Heisel era after his inheritance from McCartney went away, pre-Barnett, that Colorado was just your real big pain in the ass 5-7 team, right? And they kind of rose up to be really good under Barney. Coach Barnett will be with us on Thursday. So let's talk Tim Tebow here. And, you know, the reaction has been, well, quite frankly, horrifying. Horrifying is maybe the best word, especially when you look at some NFL peers that are going off. Des Bryant, specifically. You've got a lot of NFL guys wondering out loud. All right, Tebow can get signed, but Kaepernick can't. So there's the racial element to it. And you've got Tebow, who's had a long layoff. 2012's a while ago. You've got AAA baseball, and now you have the tight end. So Tim Tebow's done this. Tim Tebow's proved people wrong. Okay? Well, you know, it's just actually he hit a few home runs. It was okay. He was good enough to get a shot at a spot in AAA. And you won 2 championships at Florida. Here's what Urban Meyer is doing, okay? Urban Meyer doesn't know the NFL. Doesn't know the NFL locker room. Urban Meyer's the guy that comes in and is your dictator. You can't do that in the NFL. Just can't. You got the first pick. You got a lot of draft picks. You've got a team that you can absolutely mold into whatever type of sculpture you want. And this won't kill your legacy because, hell, you're taking a shot at the NFL. You've won 3 championships. Why not give it a shot here? But the fact that people are upset and cynical is one thing. There's a bigger picture. It's the communication part. It's the locker room understanding. It's kind of getting to know the pro athlete, what's it like. And Tebow pretty much gets along with everybody, whether you like him or not, or you're exhausted by him or not, or, hey, why does he get so many cracks at so many different things? It's fine. But Urban Meyer's tapping into Tebow here, and you're starting off with a 90-man roster. You're then going to come down to a 53-man roster, and Tebow's going to be invaluable from a kind of that middleman standpoint to Urban. And Tim Tebow's a Jacksonville kid. So you've got Urban, Florida connection. You've got Tebow, Florida connection, Jacksonville. You've got Sunshine at quarterback. You're the number one pick overall. I mean, there's a lot swirling around here to get excited about Jacksonville football. If he doesn't make the team, he's going to at least be able to help clue you in at the pro level. And you have a relationship with him to tap into that. And quite honestly, teams go double tight ends all the time. H-backs, not as in vogue now, but you carry a lot of tight ends. And is he good enough to be a third or fourth place spot on the roster? Is he good enough to be a practice player guy? Maybe. He's 33. That's my question. Who's on the horn?
We got Gary.
Gary, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, what's up? Hey, quick question. I know when you guys were the average Joes, did you know Randy Macho Man Savage played professional baseball?
I did. He got drafted by Oakland.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. He got drafted by Oakland. Yep.
For the naysayers of Tebow, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't he win a playoff game the last time he played in the NFL?
He did. He beat Pittsburgh in overtime.
And at Denver, a mediocre team, too.
Yeah, Denver was kind of in that 8-8, 9-7 phase with him, but he was solid gold for a rushing touchdown on a quarterback counter inside the 10.
So do you think that Urban Meyer's just doing this for old time's sake, or do you actually think that Tebow can really do something out there?
Tebow's value goes as this. 1, publicity. 2,
thank you.
Information. Two is information.
You don't have to go past 1.
No, it's publicity, and then it's also, Timmy, what am I getting into here in the NFL locker room?
True, and I don't know what that is. So
neither does Urban. You know. So
great point, man.
Hey,
all right, you take care, Chris.
Gary, appreciate you. See you, buddy. Yep. There he is, old Gary. Love him. He and Elijah are the two umpires I need to see in Major League Baseball. Right? They'll call a strike. They'll call a strike a strike. I'm sure. Yeah, I have. Yeah, Dolman sat in last Friday, God bless him, and I'm sure it got into wrestling talk. And yeah, Macho Man Savage. I was watching, I think it was a Bob Costas interview live probably 30 years ago at 11:30 on a Friday when it was Costas on NBC. And oh yeah, is sitting down there. I loved Macho Man. He was nice. I would have loved to have seen Macho Man and Hacksaw Jim Dugan in a spelling bee. In character. Probably out of character, normal dudes. In character, spell grunt, Ultimate Warrior. All right, we'll wind down hour 1. Hail Varsity continues.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
10 minutes away, Rick Kaczenski, Coach Kaz, going to be with us. George Darlington next hour. Chris Schmidt, Damon Barr, Hail Varsity. Presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Reminder about buckling up. There's over 1,500 crashes each year in Nebraska involving an impaired driver. Driving drunk, buzzed, or high, never acceptable, and law enforcement officers working every day to stop it before more people are killed or injured. If you're going to drive, don't drink. If you do drink, designate a sober driver or get a ride share. Find a way to get that ride. A DUI costs more than you think. Brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. So we're wrapping up Tebow and the hiring, renting, signing of Tim Tebow and Rex Ryan, former NFL D coordinator, head coach. Rexy's entertaining. He also has a take here on Tebow.
Urban's trying to set a culture. And one of that is this guy right here is amazing off the field. His work ethic, his passion in the weight room, all that type of stuff is a real positive for your football team. However, I get it. And it's not going to be a negative thing like it was with the Jets. Like, look, let's face it. We were on Hard Knocks. The next year when we got Tebow, we were on ESPN Hard Knocks. They were there all the time to see our backup quarterback. But right now, this is kind of a story that people are going to be pulling for Tim Tebow, that he's 30-some years old. Here's a guy who hadn't played a snap in 10 years. And, people are going to be pulling for it. And we'll see. Maybe it takes a little pressure off of Trevor, the rookie quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. I don't know. But at the end of the day, this guy may have some value in short yardage situations, running direct snap runs. Believe me, I tell you, if you got the ball on the 1 yard line, I don't know if I bet against Tim Tebow even now. Okay, he's good as a personal protector, and then as an H-back, fullback type guy, I can see it. I mean, is it ideal? Maybe not. But Urban Meyer, this is his guy, and there's no way they're going to cut Tim Tebow. There's no chance of it. He's going to make this football team.
So all those points are valid, right? Between kind of shielding the number one pick from some pressure, the culture. Now, are you going to get the other side of the coin where someone's ticked off that, all right, this guy's not as good as me, or is he what's best for the organization? Isn't there a better player out there? It's more than just making and taking snaps. There's a bigger picture to it here, and we'll see how this works. I'm kind of excited about it. But, yeah, Rick Ryan with the Tebow mania, and he's the backup and the attention. And guys are petty and jealous, no matter what our age, some of us. So that was probably a thing and an issue in Manhattan. All right, let's get you qualified. Caller 9 right now for the ESPN Memorial Day kickoff. Caller 9. Now, the grill from Capitol Patio and the Flame Shop, the Weber Spirit E210 Gas Grill, a $100 gift card to Campbell's Nursery and Garden Center, and the $100 gift card to Leon's Gourmet Grocery. Ooh, it's good. That meat for your grill, the gift card to Campbell's, the gift card to Leon's. Caller 9 qualifies right now, 466-3776, 466-3776, 1-800-825-5865. Dial us up. Damon will get your name if you're caller 9 in the box. And it'll be as simple as that. We'll draw May 21st. Caller 9 now, 466-3776. Coach Kaz next.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back into it, Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Our chat with Rick Kaczenski, Coach Kaz with us here, longtime assistant at Nebraska and Iowa. Kaz, what's up? How was the weekend?
Pretty good, man. So just a little track action, weekend off from baseball, but overall pretty good, man. How about yourself?
Doing all right with the weekend. Juniors team got their first win on the diamond, one of many more, hopefully, and we have a wood bat tournament this weekend, so I got to go to the sporting goods store and I got shaken down for a new wood bat we're going to use 10 times, so. I got to ask you, do you know how to cork one of those?
Now, see, Schmidt, this is how you got to do it. All right? You got to keep your hands clean. You just have to know somebody who knows how to cork a bat, right?
That's what I'm asking.
Don't ever implicate. Don't ever tell on yourself, man. Start teaching Junior that now. Unless, hey, even if they got pictures, deny it. It's not you.
That's a different hairstyle. I know somebody who can cork a bat. That's a better answer. I got to ask you, Coach, in your time at Notre Dame or in Iowa or at Nebraska, that either a win or a loss that had a monster impact. And I ask that because my buddy Mitch Sherman's doing a feature, his site, The Athletic, upsets in 2001, and one of the the games profiled was the Nebraska-Colorado game. And you know how Nebraska fans are. Did that game break the program, right? You point back 20 years ago, and it's not just one game. That wasn't a good Friday in Boulder, obviously. Can you smell an upset coming, either on the winning side or on the losing side?
Well, one, I think as a player and a coach, when you look back, when you're not in present tense, you're constantly looking back on the losses. The wins are great, all those type of things, but you mostly concentrate on the ones that got away. Unfortunately, I can go back at my time as a player and a coach where there was some high impact losses, and beating Florida State when they were number one in the country, then coming back, losing to Boston College in '93. Cost us a national championship. We still finished 12-1 and didn't get a share. And then, same thing, '94, losing to Boston College on the road, and it just kind of spiraled from there. We didn't have a very good season, for the standards of Notre Dame at the time, and then the Orange Bowl in '95. Unfortunately, I was part of some of those, some losses where we were up 12 against Florida State in Miami, and ended up losing there at the end of the game. So, you concentrate more on the losses. As a coach, smelling an upset, you go off of how you're practicing during the week, right? And I think a lot of times, the upsets come. Obviously, they come against teams that on paper you should beat. But also, I think the upsets come from when you start getting nervous as a coach. Are the guys around the building? How's the chatter around the pregame meal? What's the deal with these guys? And sometimes against these, I guess for lack of articulation, subpar opponents, they're a little bit too lax. Some mistakes that they're making again in practice. Repetitive mistakes, things that aren't getting cleaned up on a Tuesday that you're still seeing on a Thursday. Those are the things that make you nervous as a coach going into Saturday. The big games, they kind of take care of itself. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to be a part of those. Those are easy. It's easy to coach in big games. So, very, very, very few times, really with the exception, I think, going to Wisconsin, and, both my last two Wisconsin games at Nebraska, unfortunately, those are kind of the two games where I just kind of shocked and awed and didn't see it coming. Mm-hmm. You just didn't see it coming. And, there was I think an impactful loss and a win for two teams on opposite spectrums at Iowa 2010, losing to Wisconsin at home at Iowa. And that just kind of got the ball rolling for Wisconsin. We had beaten them 2 years in a row pretty handedly. Kind of bullied them around. We were kind of what they are now. Had them at home, had them on the ropes, and they ran a fake punt on us. And in my opinion, the players kind of looked at the coaches differently after that game. And we had a hell of a football team. We had an NFL roster, and ended up going 8-5 that year. And I truly believe that we didn't have punt safe on. We had punt return. There was less than 2 minutes to go in the game. 4th and 6, place was rocking. And I know a few players. I had a couple D linemen that were on the field saying, safe, safe, safe. We pulled them off. They ran the fake punt for 36 yards. Mm-hmm. So up to that point, I think they had they were averaging over 300 rushing yards a game. They had about 120 at that point. And then Monty Ball just went down the field and, ended the game in the end zone. But, that was an impactful loss for Iowa, I thought, in 2010, because I thought it changed the whole dynamic of the team. And I think it projected Wisconsin to kind of what they, what they are. Like, they took over the game in the trenches. And that's just kind of, they got their identity back for the first time since Barry had been gone. And they got that ball rolling. So, unfortunately, when you're in the game long enough, you're always on both ends of those, Schmidt.
Rick Kaczenski's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, longtime coach, Nebraska and Iowa. Tuesdays with Kaz, our chats. I'm just fascinated by it because everybody has that moment, at least around here, right? Where were you for that Colorado game in 01? And, I was in my parents' basement. I was working in media, but obviously not traveling to games. And you pour a Coors Light at 10:30, day after Thanksgiving, and 11 o'clock happens, and then you just want to break the TV if you're wearing your red sunglasses. And you're watching it with family, and mom's even saying words that, usually don't get said unless you break curfew, and then you talk to folks that were there, and they're like, can't believe what happened. And then, you creep back into it, and then the rug gets pulled out from you again. And Colorado was really good that day. Did you ever, as a kid, did you go to a lot of college ball games, or did you, as a fan growing up, as a sports fan, I know you played ball too, but anything that sticks out to you as with your fan hat on, like a crushing memory being that sports fan where your team just got absolutely ambushed, and you're like, what the hell happened that day?
Yeah, well, growing up in Western PA, you look at the, you're always looking at the high schools. I mean, those guys were celebrities to me. I spent my days. It was, going to the high school, watching Cathedral in a packed stadium, play the city teams, or a team from Cleveland or team Cincinnati Moeller. Some team that's national brand for a high school team, and a bunch of kids that, from the parochial league that got together and playing high school football, kicking their tail. And it was awesome. I mean, I looked at those guys. Those guys were my, I guess the guys I looked up to growing up. And it's funny, as you grow up and you see these guys, and it's like a 5'9", 180-pound tight end that, when I was in fifth grade, I thought it was Todd Christensen. It's like drinking beer with the dude, at Ash Street Pub. And I'm like, hey, that's Keith Burns. I thought he was like 6'5", 260, and ran a 4.4. So no wonder why he didn't get recruited, because he was 5'9.5", 175 as tight end in 1987. So, but as a kid, I loved baseball. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I was a big Tiger fan. Tigers had it humming in the 80s, but. Baseball was never a sport where I got too much. Hey, if they win, great. If they lose, we're okay. But I kind of shitty. I grew up kind of like hoping people lose. Hated the Lakers, hated Magic.
You were cheering for the bad guys.
Yeah, we were Celtics. I mean, you get it. I mean, and what was hard in the '80s was when the Celtics and Sixers. Yeah, you had that Pennsylvania loyalty, and then you also had the if you grow up in Erie, you kind of had to be a Boston Celtics fan, so you didn't have much choice. But I mean, I just love you go back and to grow up during that time and be a sports fan with the legends that played during that time. It's pretty amazing. But I think Penn State, Oklahoma in '85, I can still see Keith Jackson. Running down the middle of the field, and some poor safety trying to tackle him. So that game hurt me a little bit, but came back a year later and watched them camouflage Hurricanes take one on the chin from the old Nittany Lions. So
intercept the Verdi game.
The test. Yeah. Pete Giftopoulos. Yeah. Dude, it's funny because I watch some of those games now, and probably half the defense on Penn State wouldn't even get recruited now. Pete Giftopoulos was a linebacker from Canada. He was just a great football player, but I guarantee he was a 5'1", 140. I guarantee it. Trey Bauer was their inside linebacker. I mean, it was just, it was just a time where, I could name probably every player on both sides of the ball. B.J. Dozier was
fullback,
was the tailback.
Yeah.
Tim Manoa was the fullback. Schaefer the quarterback. Brian Seiberling, who was a guy from my hometown, went to Harbor Creek High School. He him and I got inducted to the Western PA Hall of Fame together. So, I mean, here's a guy I grew up with watching, played on a national championship team, and was we're getting inducted to the Western PA Hall of Fame at the same time, you know, and it just took me back. It was 2008, and, you know, I'm 34 years old at the time, and I'm still looking at this kid like I'm a 12-year-old kid. And it's, you know, that's the great thing about sports, man. You know, it was a hell of a vehicle for me and my family, and it's been a hell of a vehicle for a lot of kids I was able to coach, man. So
Rick Kaczenski's with us.
Brother.
Kaz, got to ask you about Barry Alvarez stepping down as AD, but it sounds like he's going to be the liaison between the league office and some of the coaches. That's got to be pretty big for some of the coaches as they're trying to I guess, get comfortable with the new commissioner. I know it's going to be his second year, but what a tough first year with COVID and obviously the guessing game that the Big Ten presented a lot of the coaches this season.
Yeah, well, I think it's a really extremely smart move by the Big Ten to do that. You know, and Barry's a guy that, you know, he's not going to worry about. He doesn't care about making friends. He's got enough friends. He's gonna tell you the truth. But he's also gonna tell you what he thinks is best for the league, based off the experience that he has. You're talking about a guy that I think's been in since 1981, been part of Big Ten, and you know, I mean, I still consider, you know, he was at Notre Dame a couple of years, but you might as well be in the Big Ten there. So you know, you can't replace that experience. You can't find that wisdom anywhere. You just can't put a price tag on that. And obviously Barry not only cares about his legacy, he cares about the legacy of the Big Ten, and he cares about the legacy of all the programs in the Big Ten, and especially football. And you know, I think, you know, Jim Delaney, you know, that guy was a great commissioner. I mean, he was a great leader. When, you know, he kind of spoke the law. When Jim Delaney said something, you might have your opinions, and he'd listen to him, but Delaney was going to tell you, hey, this is how we're doing it, and this is why we're doing it. And I think Barry can help the new commissioner with that. I think he'll be good with that. But also, you know, as we get older, Schmitty, you know, we're losing icon after icon. We want to keep these guys around as long as we can. You know, you want to keep a guy like Coach Osborne. I mean, there'll never be another Coach Osborne. You know, there'll never be another Barry Alvarez. Let's keep these guys around. Let's keep them involved. You know, let's get their wisdom. Let's get their knowledge. Let's get their opinion. Let's let those guys kind of lead us into the next generation of college athletics. So I'm glad that he's not stepping away 100%. I'm glad that he's staying involved. And you know what? I mean, he's earned it, man. I mean, it's a privilege to have Barry Alvarez, you know, be a part of that. And I think it's going to help Kevin Warren. I think it's going to help the league. And you know, Barry's tough, right? And you know, and you also learn a lot from making mistakes. And you know, Barry has rebooted Wisconsin several times, you know, as a coach and as an AD. And, you know, you just can't gain that experience anywhere else unless you lived it. So love Barry Alvarez, huge fan of him. I think he lost one game in 2 years at Notre Dame. He did great things for that program. And I think the testament of Barry and guys like Coach Osborne and Bo, you know, just kind of go look around and see what the former players. You know, there are going to be fans that never like you. There's always going to be people you can't please. There's always going to be an assistant coach that doesn't like you. But go try to find me a player that has anything negative to say about Barry Alvarez, Coach Osborne, and you know, I mean, it's tough to find a player to say anything negative about Bo Pelini and you know, even Kirk. I mean, you know, what Kirk was able to survive last year, that's a testament to, you know, how the players feel about Kirk.
More with Coach Kaczenski. George Darlington's also on the way. Hail Varsity continues, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Some more with the Coach Rick Kaczenski, Barry Alvarez, Tom Osborne, legends of the game, and how they contribute still to their college football program. In this case, Barry Alvarez now going to be a liaison for the Big Ten.
You got to keep those guys around, man, as long as you can in the Big Ten, especially. It's been a privilege to have those guys part of that league.
Kaz, we'll wrap. What's your take on Tebow with Urban 2.0 here down in Jacksonville?
Hell, look at the publicity, right? You're up in Lincoln, Nebraska. We're talking about Tim Tebow, man. Guy that hadn't played football since who knows when.
2012.
Right? But yeah, but I think it's more probably to do with culture, and I think probably kind of a guy having that guy in the locker room. Is he good enough to make it? Who knows? I mean, the guy's pretty amazing. It's funny. Everybody would want, if they have a son, to be like Tim Tebow, but people don't like him, right? Mm-hmm. So, good-looking guy, in shape, freak athlete, all that stuff. I mean, good dude. And people just like him. I mean, I'll tell you, what a country we live in. Let's try to cut this dude off at his knees. But I think it's great for publicity, and I think he'll be great for the locker room. Now, is he good enough to make it or play? Who knows?
We'll see.
I mean, who knows, man? And it's piqued my interest.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing for Jacksonville, and it's probably a good thing for Urban. Starting out in the NFL. Tebow has some experience in the NFL. I think Tebow can lean. I think Urban might be able to lean on Tebow for a little of those things, and have that relationship. And Urban lean on Tebow for the locker room and things of that nature. So it's obviously going to be a challenge. But hell, man, I'm not betting against Urban Meyer, and I'm not betting against Tim Tebow. You don't have to like those guys, but you gotta respect what they've done. It's been pretty amazing what those guys done on the field and Tebow off the field.
Rick Kaczenski's with us. Kaz, we'll do this again next Tuesday. Always fun to chat. Thanks for spending a few minutes, bud.
Same here, brother. Appreciate you having me on.
Good to hear from Kaz, and excited to talk about some Nebraska football, but not necessarily the outcome or the game. We spent time with Mitch Sherman earlier in his story on the 0-1 Nebraska-Colorado game, and the feature, the series being done on The Athletic, upsets in 2001 that are still being felt today with some programs. And longtime coach, Hall of Famer, assistant at Nebraska, so many great years. We welcome back in George Darlington on Hail Varsity Radio. We talked to Coach with Football Facts during the fall. Coach Darlington, how are you? Good to spend some time with you. Thanks for making time this afternoon.
Well, good. Yeah, I'm doing okay. And sorry we had so many, interruptions before we could get on.
No worries at all. It's great to spend some time with you. And you're featured along with Tracy Wistrom and Eric Crouch, Des Moines Adams in Mitch's story on that 0-1 Colorado game. And, Coach, I know it's not a pleasant ball game, but what do you remember about that week leading up? We all remember, I think, where Nebraska was at. That was number one in the country. As you look back at this, does it still kind of surprise you that Friday in Boulder?
Well, obviously we were surprised, but we made a couple errors that really hurt. I mentioned in the article that we changed one of our base defenses. We were concerned about their size and thought another defensive lineman, when we called that defense, would be better than having a linebacker in the game. If we had it to do over, obviously, we wouldn't have done that. We just weren't geared up in one way of playing a MAC football game where you saw scores that were, like whoever had the ball last won. And then the game looked worse than it was near the end because we literally gave them 2 touchdowns right at the end of the game. They conceivably should have had 48 points, which is a tremendous amount of points. But as I mentioned in the article, I had friends, Colorado buff grads, that thought in the third quarter we were still going to win, and we had an excellent opportunity to win, but fumbling on the one going in really hurt, and then we just made some errors during the game that allowed some of those points.
George Darlington's with us on Hail Varsity Radio talking about that 0-1 Colorado-Nebraska ball game. Coach, did you sense overconfidence by the kids, if you remember back?
No, that's a lot of crap if there's any indication.
That's what I'm wondering.
I thought the article in that respect, I think I read it correctly. There's no way our kids would have ever got overconfident playing Oklahoma or Colorado, anybody of that caliber. Mm-hmm. And we just made some crucial errors. As the article mentioned, we fumbled in the third quarter going in on the 1 yard line. And then they took the ball, as I recall, drove the length of the field. We had a misfit on a play inside the 10. And Eric Crouch cut off the wrong foot in the first half on a 4th and 1 in midfield. And, I'm not saying we'd have driven down and scored, but we certainly would have kept the ball for a few downs and pushed it into their territory. But there was no overconfidence, and there was no lack of focus. And again, I think I've mentioned before, the big statistic during the Nebraska 30-some years was we lost to one team with a losing record in all those years through 3 head coaches, which was a tribute to the Nebraska routine of how we practiced, which was a real factor in the Nebraska blueprint being abandoned when Callahan came in.
George Darlington's with us. Coach, did that game zap your team's confidence after the fact going into Miami, or was Miami just too big a hill after a Colorado loss like that?
Well, the bottom line is just talent-wise, Miami was better than us. Mm-hmm. A lot of times that we would never make that statement because a lot of times if there was much discrepancy one way or the other, it wasn't much. But the only difference between that team and our 95 team was they didn't have a very good quarterback. But they were extremely talented. We had to play really well to have a chance to win. I don't think they scored in the second half. We ran a punt back, but for a touchdown. But to give you how good they were, they had only given up a few yards in 12 games on punt returns, and we broke one for 70, 80 yards for a score, which was more yards than they'd given up the whole season in 12 games. They were very talented.
Yeah.
And again, I think it would have been a good game, but between our 95 team and that team, I think we would have won simply because we had better quarterbacks.
George Darlington's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, longtime assistant at Nebraska. And we're talking about the athletics article, revisiting upsets that helped shape programs 20 years from now. Coach, was it just was it a difficult time as an assistant after that 0-1 season when you look at kind of how things have shifted with the coaching carousel at Nebraska, the different administrative bosses there, and, of course, all the coaching changes? Was it difficult post-01 into 02 and beyond?
Well, 02, I don't know all the political stuff, but
Sure.
it seemed to me that all during that year there was an awful lot of things going on behind the scenes concerning change in the staff. And 5 of us were no longer on the team after the last home game.
Mm-hmm.
3 of us were fired, Milt Pennifer, myself, and the lad from Nelson Barnes from Texas. And then Dan Young was already going to retire. And Craig Bull had some issues, and he was going to leave the staff. But the big demise of Nebraska football was when they abandoned the Nebraska blueprint as to how we practiced. And part of that involved walk-ons. Coach Callahan didn't want anything to do with them. Pelini didn't either, but Jeff Shamrock kept pestering him, and there was a time when we had more walk-ons, let's say, starting than Pelini could have ever imagined. Mm-hmm. And then poor old Mike Riley, he'd never coached probably more than 100 kids, and he couldn't imagine how you could have 150 guys out. And so there was no effort to recruit walk-ons, and there was no effort to practice like we practiced, where numerous players got tremendous number of repetitions. And it helped in the year that we were practicing and playing, but it helped tremendously in the future. Mm. I remember one day, Mike Riley's first year, and Mike's really a nice guy, as we know, and I was standing on the practice field with Tommy Frazier and the father of a quarterback, and I should know his name, from California. And we had lunch that day. And
Coach, I've got to go to commercial. I hate to do this. Can we pick up the story in 2 minutes?
And now, to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Damon Barr. Get the Hail Varsity podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. Give us a rating, good, bad, or ugly. Tell us what you think. A few more minutes here. George Darlington, Hall of Fame Nebraska assistant. We're referencing Mitch Sherman's story from the Athletic in that 0-1 Colorado game. Coach, I'm sorry to step on you and interrupt, but we were talking about the Nebraska blueprint, the downfall of Nebraska football, and you had a story to tell about practice. And let's pick it up from you're on the sideline with Tommy Frazier, a father of a California quarterback, and it's Nebraska's 3rd or 4th different head coach since Frank.
Yeah, what happened is the father and I had gone to lunch that day, and he was really not a complainer. His son was 3rd team, and he said, I have no problem with that, but if he's not getting many reps, how's he going to show he's going to be good enough to play? Mm-hmm. So we're standing out there. It was a beautiful sunny day between the 2 grass fields, and Tommy was there, and I always kidded him about being a middle guard because he's so heavy now. And I said, Tommy, how many reps did our 3rd team quarterback get in practice? And he started laughing. He said, Coach, our 3rd team quarterback got more reps than our 1st and 2nd team quarterbacks. The bottom line is that everybody was working, everybody was getting better, had the opportunity to get better, and they were getting coached and prepared. Mm. There wasn't any standing around, and in some cases, in 1 or 2 years, the press and even us as coaches would be shocked at the development of some of the guys that 2 years ago you might felt would probably never see the field. And it was all because of the amount of repetition they got all the time. And whether they were fourth team or first team, they practiced, they improved their skills. And in some cases, guys took, big physical jumps over the summer. But you don't get better standing around talking to your teammates on the sideline as whether you're going to eat dominoes tonight or something else and not getting any repetition. And a lot of coaches, they don't want to deal with that many players. But it's my understanding that Alabama practices like we used to. I certainly know North Dakota State, a couple of those teams have emulated the Nebraska blueprint. But you don't get better standing. You've got to practice. And fourth team, and you're going against a first or second team player, you're going to get better because you're going to be playing at that time against a superior athlete, and you pick up pointers, you understand what you have to do to be successful.
George Darlington's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, I really love the insight. Last question about that 01 season and then the years that followed. Was there a feeling of uneasiness with Steve Peterson as the athletic director, or is it a situation where the guy just worked for us not long ago, this will be all right, or did you even have an opinion on it?
Well, he wasn't there when all of us got fired.
Steve wasn't?
Came in after that.
Okay.
No, that was Bill Byrne.
That was Byrne, okay.
And, Steve came in the next year, after we were already dismissed. And, of course, generally speaking, the fellows that replaced us were ex-players.
Sure.
Which, except for Coach Pelini. But the big demise is how they abandoned the walk-on program, how they abandoned the Nebraska blueprint. Hopefully Scott is getting it back. They do one thing in practice that was different and maybe made up for not having as many stations, and that is how they are very rapid with their plays in practice. The big thing is to get the repetition, and if you get it by going very fast and then resting and going very fast, or if you get it by having 4 stations with every player on your team involved in one station or another, they're both good. But again, you don't get better standing around.
Coach,
you get better when you practice.
Coach, last thought, when are we going to go get a taco?
Well, you always talk about that.
I'm serious. It's Taco Tuesday.
I don't ever hear from you.
Well, this COVID thing's been a pain in the neck,
Well, now, see, we're in Nebraska. We're not in New York City. We can go out, have a meal, and there's not going to be any kissing between either one of us anyway.
I'm not your type.
You come up with a date, and I'll be very happy.
We'll go get a taco.
To accompany you. In fact, my one-eyed doctor, I'm the one-eyed guy. We're going to dinner on Thursday night.
All right.
And he usually buys, so.
All right.
That's always good, too.
Well, I'll get the margaritas. You get the tacos. All right?
Okay, that's fair enough.
We'll talk soon.
You find the time, and I'll be there with bells on.
That'll be good. Coach, appreciate your insight. Thanks for spending some time on a tough ball game and a tough topic.
Well, the one thing, don't forget about that 2001 team. They probably got more out of their talent than any team we ever coached in 30 years.
So they matched.
I don't believe in saying overachievers, but they are the epitome of the overachievers because talent-wise, they didn't compare to the 95 team or the 94 or the 97 team, but they accomplished a tremendous amount.
That's awesome insight. Coach, you take care. We'll be in touch, and we'll get that taco.
Okay, sounds great.
You take
Thanks
care.
a lot.
There he is. George Darlington with us, Hall of Fame Nebraska assistant. We have tried to do tacos, and I'm saying, when are we going to get a taco? And he's like, you don't call me. We haven't done tacos for a while. So, with for a while not being able to really go out, or if you do go out, you're spaced out. Leave it to Coach to go, yeah, you know what? We're not in New York, bro. We can go get a taco here in Nebraska, in great state of Nebraska. And he's right on. He's awesome. Good for him. Great insight, and he doesn't pull punches. Love hearing from him. We'll get you a chance to qualify for the ESPN Memorial Day kickoff here shortly. And we'll find out what's for dinner for Damon Barr. Might be some rum. Might just be some rum. Winding down to Tuesday, it's Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Miss
Brother, give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time on a Tuesday. Good stuff today. Mitch Sherman, Rick Kaczenski, George Darlington tomorrow. Mike Babcock, Mike Schuhart. And it's a Pirate Wednesday. Mike Leach going to join the show. Your chance shortly here for the ESPN Memorial Day kickoff. A giveaway coming up May 21st. That's a grill from Capitol Patio and the Flame Shop. That's a gift card to Campbell's. It's a gift card to Leon's. We'll hear that cue to call in a moment. We're going to hear from Urban Meyer and Chris Collinsworth on this Tebow thing and if he's actually signed with Jayville or not.
Yeah, we have not signed Tim. There's a thought going around. He was in the best shape of his life, asked to see if he could work out with a couple of our coaches. I wasn't even there. And they came back to me and said, wow, this guy's in incredible shape. And I said, then I went another time and watched him try him out. And they said, go work on these things. He comes back later. They try him out again. I'm not there. And they come in and they said, wow, this guy's ball skills. He's a great athlete. He looks like he's 18 years old, not 20, whatever he is, 33. And I said, guys, you don't understand now. This guy is, he's the most competitive maniac you're ever going to talk to. And let's give it a shot. And I have not decided if we're going to do that or not yet. I'm getting close. I got to make a decision here pretty soon.
Well, there you are. He's signed, dude. Okay? He's signed. Damon, what is for dinner tonight? Junior tried making mac and cheese, and I don't know that he oiled the pan, and things got really stinky last night.
That's a tough situation there. We're lighting up the grill tonight.
Bang.
Celebrating our last week as roommates in the next coming weeks as we're all moving out eventually. And turkey burgers, hot dogs, little beer darts.
Nice. Do you trust Mrs. Damon to throw a dart with you having a water balloon sitting on your head?
That is definitely...
You're not hammered enough yet?
Well, she's out of town right now anyway, so I won't exactly have to worry about it, but I don't know if I'd be stepping into that ring anytime soon with the...
How's your aim?
I wouldn't trust myself in that regard either, so I'll leave it at that.
Gotcha. Let's qualify now and take caller 9. Yeah, Dan twittered in, why are there bird sound effects? I didn't make it. All right, that's the sound of my wife's toaster thrown in the bathtub I'm in. Actually, it's a grill, and you can win a gift card to Leon's Gourmet, a gift card to Campbell's Nursery, each $100. But the grill is a Weber Spirit E210 gas grill from Capitol Patio and the Flame Shop, also Capitol Patio Rub, and a Weber brush for said grill. The 21st of May is the giveaway. Caller 9 qualifies now for that drawing 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Caller 9 now. The ESPN Memorial Day kickoff. Qualify now. The Grail, the gift card to Campbell's, the gift card to Leon's. Be caller 9. 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Good stuff today. Thanks, George Darlington. Thanks, Rick Kaczenski. Thank you, Mitch Sherman. Coach Leach tomorrow. Talk to you at 4 on Hail Varsity.